Sometimes the people we meet when they're at their lowest point aren't who they appear to be, and sometimes a simple act of kindness can create ripples that change lives in ways we never imagined. What I'm about to tell you is a story that will challenge everything you think you know about homelessness, success, and the thin line that separates one life from another. This is the incredible true story of how a struggling waitress's daily acts of compassion toward a homeless man led to a discovery that would not only change her life but reveal a truth about loss, redemption, and the power of human connection that nobody saw coming. The story begins in Seattle, Washington, in the fall of 2019, at a small diner called Rosie's on the corner of Pine Street and 4th Avenue. The diner had been a fixture in downtown Seattle for over 40 years, serving breakfast and lunch to a mix of office workers, tourists, and people from all walks of life who needed an affordable meal in an increasingly expensive city. 28-year-old Jennifer Hayes had been working as a waitress at Rosie's for 3 years, taking the early morning shift that started at 5 a.m. and ended around 2 p.m. Jennifer was a single mother raising her 6-year-old daughter Mia on her own after her husband had walked out on them when Mia was just a baby. She lived paycheck to paycheck in a tiny studio apartment in the Northgate neighborhood, juggling childcare costs, bills, and the constant stress of never having quite enough money to feel secure. Working at Rosie's wasn't glamorous, but Jennifer was good at it. She had a warm smile, genuine compassion for people, and the kind of work ethic that made customers feel cared for. She remembered regulars' names, knew their usual orders, and had a gift for making people feel seen and valued during what was often the most rushed part of their day. It was on a cold October morning that Jennifer first noticed the man who would change her life. He was sitting on the sidewalk outside Rosie's, huddled against the brick wall with a thin blanket wrapped around his shoulders. He looked to be in his mid-50s, with long, graying hair, a thick beard, and clothes that were worn and dirty from living on the streets. Unlike some of the other homeless individuals who frequented the area, he wasn't asking for money or holding a sign. He just sat there quietly, watching people walk by, his eyes holding a sadness that Jennifer found heartbreaking. During her morning break, Jennifer brought him a cup of hot coffee and a breakfast sandwich that was about to be thrown out anyway. "Good morning," she said gently, kneeling down to his level. "I thought you might be hungry." The man looked up at her with surprise, as if he couldn't quite believe someone was speaking to him with kindness. "Thank you," he said quietly. His voice was hoarse from disuse, but there was something refined about his manner of speaking that Jennifer noticed immediately. "What's your name?" Jennifer asked. The man hesitated for a long moment before answering. "William. People call me William." "Nice to meet you, William. I'm Jennifer. I work here at Rosie's. If you need anything, you let me know, okay?" That simple interaction became the beginning of a routine that would continue for the next 3 years. Every morning, Jennifer would bring William coffee and whatever food was available, usually leftovers or items that couldn't be served to paying customers. She would spend a few minutes talking with him during her breaks, learning small pieces of his story while respecting his obvious desire for privacy about his past. William was different from many of the other homeless people Jennifer encountered. He was quiet and thoughtful, always grateful for any kindness shown to him but never demanding or aggressive. He kept to himself, reading books he found in trash bins or borrowed from the library, and he had a habit of sketching on scraps of paper with pencil stubs he collected. Jennifer's co-workers thought she was wasting her time. "You know he's probably going to use any money you give him for drugs or alcohol," her co-worker Denise warned her. "That's usually how it goes with these people." But Jennifer never gave William money. She gave him food, sometimes old clothes that no longer fit Mia's father and had been left behind, and most importantly, she gave him dignity and respect. "He's a human being," Jennifer told Denise. "Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness, regardless of their circumstances." Over the months and years that followed, Jennifer learned fragments of William's story. He had been living on the streets of Seattle for about 5 years. Before that, he told her vaguely, he had worked in business but had lost everything due to bad decisions and worse luck. He never went into detail about what had happened, and Jennifer never pushed him. What struck Jennifer most about William was his intelligence and education. Despite his circumstances, he would sometimes make references to literature, philosophy, or current events that revealed a sharp mind that hadn't been dulled by years of hardship. He once helped Mia with her homework when Jennifer brought her daughter to work on a day when school was closed, explaining multiplication in a way that made the 6-year-old finally understand the concept. "You would have made a good teacher," Jennifer told him after that incident. William just smiled sadly. "I was a lot of things, once upon a time." Jennifer's life during these 3 years wasn't easy. She struggled constantly with money, worked extra shifts whenever possible, and worried constantly about providing for Mia. There were times when she could barely afford to feed herself, let alone bring food to William, but she always found a way to bring him something, even if it was just coffee and a kind word. "You don't have to keep doing this," William told her one morning in 2021, during the height of the pandemic when the diner was barely surviving and Jennifer's hours had been cut. "I know things are hard for you too. We all need someone looking out for us," Jennifer replied simply. "Besides, you're my friend, William. Friends take care of each other." The turning point in this story came on a rainy morning in November 2022, exactly 3 years after Jennifer had first met William. Jennifer arrived at work to find an unusual commotion outside the diner. There was an ambulance parked on the street, and a small crowd had gathered. Her heart sank when she realized the ambulance was parked near the spot where William usually sat. She pushed through the crowd and found paramedics attending to William, who appeared to be unconscious. A police officer was standing nearby, talking into his radio. "What happened?" Jennifer asked frantically. "Is he okay?" One of the paramedics looked up. "He collapsed. Looks like he's been sick for a while and it finally caught up with him. We're taking him to Harborview Medical Center." "I'm coming with him," Jennifer said immediately. "Are you family?" the paramedic asked. Jennifer hesitated only a moment before lying. "Yes. I'm his daughter." At Harborview, Jennifer sat in the emergency room waiting area for hours, refusing to leave until she knew William was okay. Finally, a doctor came out to speak with her. "Your father is stable," the doctor said. "He has pneumonia and severe malnutrition, but we caught it in time. He's going to need to stay here for a few days." Jennifer nodded, relief flooding through her. "Can I see him?" "In a little while. But I need to ask you some questions for his medical records. We couldn't find any identification on him." Jennifer did her best to answer the doctor's questions with the limited information she had about William, but there was so much she didn't know. She didn't know his last name, his date of birth, or any medical history. She felt helpless and realized how little she actually knew about this man she had been caring for 3 years. When she was finally allowed to see William, he was awake but weak, hooked up to IVs and monitors. He looked smaller somehow, more fragile than she had ever seen him. "Jennifer," he said weakly when he saw her. "You didn't have to come." "Of course I came," she said, taking his hand. "You scared me half to death." William was quiet for a moment, then squeezed her hand gently. "I need to tell you something. After 3 years of your kindness, you deserve to know the truth about who I am." Over the next hour, William told Jennifer his real story, and it was nothing like what she had imagined. His full name was William Morrison, and before he had ended up on the streets of Seattle, he had been the CEO of Morrison Technologies, a software company that had been valued at over $200 million in 2014. He had been successful, wealthy, and by all outward appearances, living the American dream. But in 2015, William's world had fallen apart. His wife of 25 years had been killed in a car accident. 6 months later, his adult son, his only child, had died from a drug overdose. Consumed by grief and guilt over not being there for his son during his struggles with addiction, William had made a series of catastrophic business decisions that led to his company's collapse. "I lost everything within a year," William told Jennifer. "The company, my home, my savings. But honestly, I had already lost everything that mattered when I lost my family. The money and the business were just the external reflection of how destroyed I was inside. William explained that he had voluntarily walked away from what little remained of his life, unable to face the person he saw in the mirror every morning. He had ended up on the streets of Seattle not because he had nowhere else to go, but because he felt he deserved nothing better. For 5 years, I punished myself by living in the worst way possible, William said. I wanted to disappear, to become nobody, because I felt like I had failed at being somebody. Jennifer listened to all of this with tears streaming down her face, not because she was sad that William had once been wealthy and successful, but because she finally understood the depth of pain this man had been carrying all along. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Because you treated me like a human being without knowing who I used to be," William replied. "You saw me at my worst and showed me kindness anyway. If you had known about my past, you might have treated me differently." I needed someone to care about William the homeless man, not William the former CEO. But there was more to William's story that he hadn't told Jennifer yet. A few months earlier, before he had collapsed, William had been contacted by a lawyer representing the liquidation of his former company's assets. It turned out that one of the software patents Morrison Technologies had developed had been licensed by a major tech company, and there was a substantial sum of money, over $3 million, that legally belonged to William as the primary patent holder. "I've been trying to figure out what to do with it," William told Jennifer. "I don't feel like I deserve it, and I don't know how to go back to being the person who could handle that kind of responsibility." Jennifer sat with this information, processing everything she had just learned. Then she did something that William would later say was the moment that changed everything for him. She looked him in the eye and said, "William, I don't care if you used to be a CEO or a janitor or an astronaut. You're my friend, and you deserve a second chance at life. Your wife and your son wouldn't want you punishing yourself forever. They would want you to live." Those words, coming from someone who had shown him consistent kindness without any knowledge of his past or any expectation of reward, broke through the wall William had built around himself. Over the next few weeks, as William recovered in the hospital, Jennifer visited him every day after her shift. She helped him contact the lawyer about his financial settlement, encouraged him to speak with therapists about his grief and trauma, and supported him as he took the first tentative steps toward rebuilding his life. But William had his own plans for how he wanted to use his second chance. 2 months after leaving the hospital, William asked Jennifer to meet him at a coffee shop, not Rosie's, but a nicer place where they could talk privately. When Jennifer arrived, she found William transformed. He had cut his hair and beard, was wearing clean, new clothes, and looked more like the successful businessman he had once been. But what shocked Jennifer was what he told her. "I've spent the last 2 months thinking about what I want to do with the rest of my life," William began. "And I realized that the only time I felt truly human in the last 5 years was when you treated me with kindness and dignity. You gave me something money could never buy, you gave me hope." William explained that he was using his settlement money to start a new venture, but not a tech company this time. He was creating a foundation dedicated to helping homeless individuals not just with temporary assistance, but with comprehensive support to help them rebuild their lives, mental health services, job training, housing assistance, and most importantly, treating them with the dignity and respect they deserved. "I want you to help me run it," William said. "You understand something that most people don't, that homeless people aren't statistics or problems to be solved. They're human beings who deserve to be seen and valued." Jennifer was speechless. "William, I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything about running a foundation." "You know the most important thing," William replied. "You know how to treat people with compassion. Everything else we can learn together." Jennifer thought about Mia, about the struggles they had faced, about the countless times she had worried about making rent or affording groceries. And she thought about the choice she had made 3 years ago to share what little she had with a stranger who needed help. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do it." The Morrison Foundation for Homeless Services opened its doors in Seattle in June 2023. Jennifer left her job at Rosie's to become the foundation's director of community outreach, with a salary that was more than triple what she had been making as a waitress. More importantly, she was doing work that felt meaningful and aligned with her values. The foundation took a revolutionary approach to homelessness, treating each person as an individual with unique circumstances and needs rather than applying one-size-fits-all solutions. They provided not just food and shelter, but counseling, job training, medical care, and ongoing support to help people rebuild their lives with dignity. William served as the foundation's CEO, but he was a very different kind of leader than he had been at Morrison Technologies. He spent his days talking with the people the foundation served, learning their stories, and ensuring that the organization never lost sight of its mission to treat every person with respect and compassion. The foundation's approach was so successful that within a year, they had helped over 200 people transition off the streets and into stable housing and employment. News of their work spread, attracting donations and support from across the country. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of the foundation's work was the story of how it began, the story of a waitress who showed kindness to a homeless man without knowing who he was or what he had been, and how that simple, consistent compassion had saved not just one life but countless others. Jennifer was featured in a Seattle Times article about the foundation's work, and during the interview, she was asked what made her decide to help William all those years ago. "I didn't see a homeless person," Jennifer explained. "I saw a human being who was having a hard time. I was having a hard time too, in different ways. We all need help sometimes, and we all deserve to be treated with kindness regardless of our circumstances." William, reading the article later, felt tears well up in his eyes. Jennifer had given him something he thought he had lost forever when his wife and son died. She had given him a reason to live and a purpose beyond his own pain. Today, the Morrison Foundation has expanded to 3 cities, employing over 50 people and helping thousands of homeless individuals every year. Jennifer continues to serve as Director of Community Outreach, and she has become a national advocate for compassionate approaches to homelessness. William, now 59, splits his time between managing the foundation and volunteering in its programs, often spending his mornings having coffee with newly housed individuals, offering them the same kind of supportive friendship that Jennifer once offered him. Jennifer's daughter Mia, now 10 years old, volunteers at the foundation on weekends, helping to serve meals and talking with the people the foundation serves. She has grown up understanding that success isn't measured by how much money you have, but by how you treat people and what you contribute to your community. Uncle William, as Mia calls him, has become a fixture in their lives, attending Mia's school events and holidays with Jennifer's family. He has told Jennifer repeatedly that she and Mia saved his life, but Jennifer always insists that they saved each other. The small studio apartment where Jennifer and Mia once struggled to make ends meet is now a memory. They live in a comfortable home in a good school district, and Jennifer no longer worries about making rent or feeding her daughter. But she never forgets what it felt like to struggle, and that empathy informs every decision she makes at the foundation. The story of Jennifer and William has been featured in documentaries, podcasts, and news programs across the country. It has inspired other successful business people to reconsider how they think about homelessness and social responsibility. More importantly, it has inspired ordinary people to recognize that small acts of kindness can have extraordinary impacts. "I brought him coffee and a sandwich every morning for 3 years," Jennifer said during a TED Talk about her experience. "It cost me almost nothing, but it meant everything to someone who had lost hope." That's the thing about kindness, you never know how much impact you might have on someone's life. William, who attended Jennifer's TED Talk, sat in the audience with tears streaming down his face. After she finished speaking, he stood and applauded, and soon the entire audience was on their feet. Later, during the Q&A session, someone asked William what advice he would give to people who had lost everything and felt like giving up. "I would tell them what Jennifer showed me through her actions," William replied. "That your worth as a human being isn't determined by your bank account, your job title, or your circumstances. It's determined by how you treat people and what you do with the opportunities you're given. I had lost everything that I thought defined me, but Jennifer helped me understand that who I was at my lowest point, and who she was when she chose to help me despite her own struggles, that's what really matters." The partnership between Jennifer and William has transformed not just their own lives but the lives of countless others who have been served by the Morrison Foundation. Their story stands as a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of second chances, and the truth that we never really know who the people around us might be or what they might become with a little kindness and support. Sometimes the person sleeping on the sidewalk outside your workplace isn't just a homeless person, they're someone who has lost their way and needs help finding it again. Sometimes the waitress struggling to make ends meet while raising a child alone is exactly the right person to show us what really matters in life. And sometimes, 3 years of small, daily acts of kindness can create ripples that change not just 2 lives, but an entire community's understanding of what it means to care for one another. Jennifer still works at the Morrison Foundation, and she still starts her days with coffee, but now she shares it with William in the Foundation's offices rather than on a cold sidewalk. They talk about their plans for expanding the Foundation's work, about Mia's latest school achievements, and about the lives they're helping to rebuild. Do you ever think about how different things would have been if I hadn't stopped to talk to you that first morning? Jennifer asked William recently. William smiled. Every single day. You saved my life, Jennifer. But more than that, you reminded me that life was worth saving. The story of Jennifer Hayes and William Morrison reminds us that we never know who we might be helping when we choose compassion over indifference, connection over isolation, and hope over despair. Sometimes the most important relationships in our lives begin with the smallest gestures of kindness, and sometimes the people we help end up helping us right back in ways we never imagined possible. Don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to the channel for more short stories.